a fatal attraction.
We've got children who have got problems with their behaviour and who are feeling very unhappy with their lives, and they find each other.
When it's a teenage girl, people will stop and think, were they under the influence of the boy?
An escalating fantasy.
She goes in search of real-life horror.
A ferocious attack.
He told police that he had actually stepped away, and when he came back, he saw her stabbing and trying to kill Brianna.
2 15-year-old killers.
They were truly committed to this murder. This is not something that was done tentatively. This is, well, I'm doing it and I'm all in and I absolutely mean it.
With a plan to murder.
To have a case literally in black and white from start to finish, that is quite unusual.
And an innocent victim.
There's no doubt that Brianna thought that she was her friend.
She found herself mixing with probably the one person that really had the capacity to hurt her.
A body has been discovered by dog walkers in woods near Warrington,
The scene
Cheshire.
suggests that the victim had been stabbed multiple times.
Police
and that
are
two
appealing for
people
witnesses who were in Linear Park, Culcheth, to come forward.
The knife attack had been frenzied and ferocious. The police and paramedics tried desperately to save her, but at 4:02 p.m, the victim is pronounced dead.
So the body was found just at the top of these steps here. You can see this is a really beautiful park. It would have been busy, ordinary Saturday, full of dog walkers and joggers.
Within 36 hours, police make 2 arrests. The alleged killers are just 15 years old. Their names are withheld to protect their identities, but their victim's name is soon known around the world. Her name? Brianna Ghey. Ten months after the killing, and after an 18-day trial, 2 teenagers were found guilty of the brutal murder of Brianna Ghey.
Brianna was larger than life. She was funny, witty and fearless. We miss Brianna so much, and our house feels empty without her laughter.
It's difficult to comprehend how some people can do these vile things in the world and don't understand how cruel and heartbreaking their actions can be.
Throughout the trial, the killers, now aged 16, were known only as Girl X and Boy Y. But after the jury delivered their verdicts, the judge, Mrs. Justice Yip, announced that the names of the killers would be made public on the day of their sentencing.
This case is so beyond the ken of most people that people need to know who they are. And if they're still going to be in prison when they're 30, 40, maybe even older, the fact their name's revealed at the age of 16 as opposed to 18 makes very little difference.
And finally, the names and faces of the 15-year-old killers of Brianna have been revealed. Girl X has been named as Scarlett Jenkinson, and Boy Y as Eddie Ratcliffe. Jenkinson will serve a minimum of 22 years in prison, and Ratcliffe 20. As they begin their sentences, we look at how 2 15-year-old children, never before in trouble with the police, from good families, one a top-set student, the other a teacher's daughter, conspired to murder their unsuspecting victim in a brutal attack that will go down in the annals of criminal history. What can you tell us about Scarlett Jenkinson's upbringing and early life?
Her background is stable, her mum and dad together. Her mum is a teacher, her dad is a builder who we know also teaches young people coming into the trade. At the time, Scarlett was born, her mum and dad already had 3 sons, so she's the youngest of their family. There's pictures on social media of her on a pony at birthday parties, looking angelic at a wedding. There just seems to be nothing remarkable, really, about her background.
What have neighbours of Scarlett Jenkinson said to you about her and the family?
I think they're as flabbergasted as everyone else that she went on to do something like this.
Within a year of starting at Culcheth High School, 11-year-old Scarlett Jenkinson admitted that she began self-harming with a knife. A coping mechanism, she said, to help deal with growing anxiety. There she met another 11-year-old, Eddie Ratcliffe, a quiet, shy boy with whom she slowly developed a close bond. And what do we know about Eddie Ratcliffe?
He too, it seems, comes from a decent home. His mum is a graphic designer, his dad is the manager of a truck company, and he runs an amateur kickboxing gym. We know Eddie Ratcliffe was pretty clever. He was a top set student at school, and there's photos of him on social media as a young boy, curly, blonde-haired, cute-looking little toddler, messing about in the woods, playing with toys. We know that Eddie is the middle of 3 children. He's got a younger sister, she's still at school. And we heard evidence in court that his older brother teased him for being autistic.
In fact, Eddie Ratcliffe's autism wasn't officially diagnosed until after his arrest, following the murder.
What we've got is 2 children who come from what appears to be entirely unremarkable, supportive families. Now, of course, there may be a story that we don't know, but I think it's actually a bit more simple than that. I think it's a combination of vulnerabilities. We've got children who have got problems with their behaviour and who are feeling very unhappy with their lives, and they find each other. And in finding each other, they then encourage each other, they reward each other, and it starts to escalate.
While Eddie Ratcliffe was achieving high marks at school and impressing his teachers, Scarlett Jenkinson, now his close friend, was beginning her descent into a more sinister mindset, indulging her growing love of horror films.
So we've got Scarlett Jenkinson, who has been watching horror films since the age of 13 and seemingly becoming quite excited by them, which is an incongruous emotion. I would expect most children to feel, disgust, fear, and to want to watch something like that with their friends, with the safety and comfort of their friends around them, so they can all be equally horrified but in a safe environment. But she's doing this on her own, she's feeling excited by it.
Liz, what did Eddie Ratcliffe say about Scarlett Jenkinson, someone he obviously knew quite well?
She wasn't a normal person, were the words that he used. And, when he elaborated on that, he said that she didn't have many friends. In fact, she didn't like many people and they didn't like her either. He said that she used to joke about dead babies. She called herself a Satanist. She would text odd things to him, he said, like stab your nan, shag your cat.
In 2022, Jenkinson left her school after giving cannabis gummies to other school children. She was then accepted at another school, Birchwood Community High School, where she spent time in the school's inclusion unit, away from the main school. How did she and Eddie Ratcliffe keep in touch with one another?
Well, mainly on social media. They obviously used to message each other a lot on Snapchat and on WhatsApp. And I think they occasionally would meet up and hang out together, but not very frequently.
Messages recovered from their phones during the evidence-gathering stage of the investigation showed that at times they were innocent enough. But other online interactions were of a darker nature. These messages showed a preoccupation with violence, torture, and death, and saw them discussing how they wanted to kill people they knew. When Ratcliffe felt that another boy was getting too close to a girl he liked, he wrote,
I thought he was your friend, but you seem pretty okay with me killing him.
He is my friend, to be honest, but I don't care if you kill him. I can do my best to help you, team.
She later added,
Just ask me to do it and I will do it. I will try to kill him. Wear a mask. Use a voice changer and keep him away from
I'm going to let you decide what to do with him. If you kill him, I would like you to do as you see fit. Cut out his heart, cook it, and feed it to your dog.
I think that if I were to look at these messages, the first thing that I would think of is, well, there's probably quite a lot of bravado here. These are two kids that are trying to impress each other. But even so, they are incredibly, incredibly dark.
In notes found after her arrest, Scarlett Jenkinson revealed a growing interest in serial killers such as Jeffrey Dahmer, Richard Ramirez, and Harold Shipman.
There's almost an expectation that teenage boys are going to be attracted to violence, whether it be video games or graphic novels or whatever. Whereas when it's a teenage girl, people will stop and think, well, I think the immediate reaction is, were they under the influence of the boy? Which I think is a very unfair assumption to make. But I suspect that's quite a natural thought to go through people's minds.
On the 5th of December 2022, Scarlett Jenkinson sent Eddie Ratcliffe an advert for an underground website for people who like rape, torture and murder.
I love watching torture vids, real ones on the dark web.
For once, this was no idle boast. When Scarlett Jenkinson's phone was examined following her arrest, it was found to have a browser which gave her access to the dark web.
Scarlett Jenkinson is no longer interested in fictional horror. She goes in search of real life horror.
I've liked this stuff for a while. I finally found a good red room.
These red rooms are shocking sites on the dark web where people can watch live murder and torture. And Scarlett Jenkinson was only 15 when she downloaded a browser to watch these violent sites online.
I know police officers who have had to watch red room material. Everybody that I know that is exposed to this kind of material is utterly traumatised by it. It stays with them for life and they have to take steps to try and maintain their own mental well-being. I think that if you are in a red room and you are watching that kind of material, for whatever reason, you are traumatising yourself. You are doing terrible, terrible damage to your psyche.
But by mid-December, another person had appeared on their radar. What can you tell us about Brianna?
Brianna was a 16-year-old girl. We know she was born a boy, but she was transgender and had been living as a girl for 2 years since she was 14. Her mum talked about her being quite a contradictory character because she was very outgoing online. She had 31,000 followers on TikTok and she was very outgoing, did a lot of videos about makeup and what she was wearing and was very confident online. But in real life, she was actually quite an anxious child. She struggled to go to school. Her mum said that before she died, she actually hadn't been out of her bedroom for a few days. So there was this kind of contradiction in her character.
Brianna, suffering from social anxiety, required a personalised timetable away from the main school, according to her head teacher.
The problem with an inclusion unit is you will have children there who are there for all kinds of different reasons and have all kinds of different problems. And some will have behavioural problems, some might be aggressive and angry, some might just have social anxiety, like Brianna had. So you're mixing these groups. They're all vulnerable in their own ways.
And it was in Birchwood's inclusion unit that Brianna met Scarlett Jenkinson.
It seems they struck up a friendship initially over makeup. Brianna complimented Scarlett Jenkinson on her eyeliner. That's what we were told. So there's no doubt that Brianna thought Scarlett Jenkinson was her friend.
It's ironic that they met in a place where Brianna thought that she would be safe, and she was going to the inclusion unit because she really, really struggled to mix. And yet she found herself mixing with probably the one person that really had the capacity to hurt her.
Two months before the killing, Scarlett Jenkinson sent Eddie Ratcliffe a text telling him about her new friend.
I'm obsessed over someone I know, but don't have feelings for them. She's called Brianna. I don't know how to explain. Also, she has a dick, lol.
Is it a femboy or a tranny?
When you hear the way that Eddie Ratcliffe referred to her as an it, certainly there is a level of transphobia there.
Tell me what you feel when you interact with it.
I got nervous and stuff, but my heart felt normal.
I don't think you're necessarily in love, but I think you're more curious and intrigued by its unnatural nature.
She's really different.
But this isn't a case of somebody who is exercising their right to be gender critical. He is calling her an it. So he is not viewing her as even human. She is other to him.
Evidence showed that in early 2023, Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe had compiled a kill list of 5 people they wanted to murder. They included a boy whom Ratcliffe said was a nonce, a boy who Jenkinson said had told teachers that she had been taking pills and LSD, and 2 individuals who she said had been unpleasant to her boyfriend.
This pair targeted children potentially to be killed who were in some way more likely to be vulnerable, more likely to be accessible to them.
They even wrote a detailed plan and shared it via WhatsApp.
You distract, I go from behind with my knife, then stab his neck.
Just stab him, slit his throat and stab his back.
Could I stab him?
Sure. I know a hidden spot nobody goes to in Linear Park.
So we know in January, a few weeks before the murder, that Scarlett Jenkinson had tried to lure a boy to his death, essentially, by setting up an Instagram account to strike up a friendship with him. Now, for whatever reason, he didn't take the bait and blocked her on social media.
The 5th name on the list? Brianna Ghey.
I want to see if it will scream like a man or a girl.
I think that part of the reason why Brianna suddenly entered the kill list was that she was somebody who was easily accessible to this pair. She is somebody who trusted them, felt that they were friends, and who would agree to meet them in a park, whereas other children on the list I don't think would have done. So it might just have been a case of, well, she presents more opportunity. It's literally as practical as that.
The plans to kill were escalating fast, and their target now was Brianna. Jenkinson and Ratcliffe planned to get Brianna to Linear Park on an earlier occasion, on January the 27th. What happened on that day?
So this was about a fortnight before the actual murder. Scarlett Jenkinson had asked Brianna to come to the park and told her that they would be taking some cocaine together.
She's agreed to come to Culture tomorrow.
So I bring my knife?
Yes, it is definitely sharp enough, by the way.
Just a few weeks before the murder, Eddie Ratcliffe's family went on a skiing holiday to Bulgaria, which of course is where Mr. Ratcliffe bought the hunting knife for his son.
Meet me at the wooden post in Linear at 12. We'll go over plan again, and I'll show you where I'm killing her. And then we both walk to the library to meet her. And grab onto Brianna, slit her throat.
I don't think you can agree to meet somebody in a park and arrange for them to bring a knife with them and say, well, this is all fantasy. So the idea of fantasy is it takes place in your head. You know, you may swap messages, but you don't agree a time and a place and a weapon. I think it's ludicrous to say that this was all fantasy. I did not expect this to happen. What the heck did she expect to happen?
When she starts to fall, stab her in the back, then pass me a knife. I want to stab her at least once, even if she's dead. Just because it's fun, lol.
Ratcliffe then suggested that they use code words as signals once Brianna was in position to be attacked.
Let's have 2 words. One for getting the knife ready, and another to stab.
For get knife ready, I'll look at you and cough. And to stab, I'll say gay.
But we know that this plan was actually foiled because Brianna texted and told Scarlett that she couldn't make it because she had to go to a family dinner. After Brianna called off the meeting, Scarlett, Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe met here in the park anyway at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon just to hang out. A fortnight later, Brianna would be with them.
In the days after that aborted meeting, Scarlett Jenkinson's thirst to kill Brianna now seemed unquenchable.
Scarlett was obviously desperate for them to carry out the plan and to kill Brianna.
Let's kill Brianna tomorrow, 6 p.m.
If I can, then yes.
But Eddie Ratcliffe was adamant that he couldn't meet on a school night. He was revising for his GCSE mock exams.
Please come out tomorrow between 6 and 8.
It's a school day. I will be eating around 7 p.m.
Please, I want it done ASAP.
Can't. It's a school night.
I don't want to wait. I want her to die really badly. I just want to see pure horror on her face and hear her scream in pain.
Days later, Jenkinson sent Ratcliffe a photo of a handwritten note detailing her plan, including the proposed date for Brianna's murder.
Meet Eddie at Wooden Post, 1 p.m. Walk down to Library bus stop. Wait until Brianna gets off bus, then the 3 of us walk to Linear Park. Go to the pipe tunnel area. I say code word to Eddie. He stabs her in the back as I stab her in the stomach. Eddie drags the body into the area. We both cover up the area with logs, etc.
2 days before the murder, the pair started messaging again.
I'm excited about Saturday.
Why?
Brianna, remember?
Oh yeah,
Are you excited?
I forgot.
How?
Because I'm eating.
This is a really bizarre exchange. So clearly, Scarlett is very, very excited by what she is anticipating is going to happen. And yet Eddie is far more casual about it. He says that he's forgotten about it. This, I think, shows that he was not as invested in this as Scarlett was. But it kind of shows you really the level of motivation. And definitely there's more motivation coming from Scarlett.
On Friday the 10th of February, the day before the murder, Scarlett Jenkinson sent Brianna a message inviting her to come to Culcheth the next day. Eddie Ratcliffe told Jenkinson that he'd bring his hunting knife.
And that will definitely 100% kill her?
Yes, it cuts my skin easily.
I'm as excited as for tomorrow.
At 12:43 p.m, Ratcliffe was dropped outside Sainsbury's in the village by his mum, meeting Jenkinson, who was waiting nearby. Brianna left home shortly after, messaging her mother. Captured on her own camera doorbell, and later on the bus's CCTV, a nervous and anxious Brianna texted her mother again, telling her she was scared to be on the bus by herself. On the day of the murder, can you explain and describe what happened when Brianna left the bus?
Scarlett Jenkinson met Brianna off the bus. Eddie Ratcliffe was kind of hanging back a little bit. And then the three started walking towards Linear Park. In court, we saw CCTV of them essentially luring Brianna to her death. And Brianna looked very distinctive. You know, she had these long white socks on, a fluffy white jacket, you know, her red hair. They were captured on CCTV of various shops, restaurants, doorbell cameras as they walked to the park. And several witnesses saw them and actually remembered Brianna because she was wearing such a distinctive outfit, which several of the witnesses actually said was unsuitable clothing for the time of year because it was February, pretty cold. But once they got to the park, obviously there was no CCTV from there, and they walked the kind of 10-15 minutes to the bench where the murder took place.
At 3:06 p.m, Brianna's phone sent a message to Scarlett Jenkinson's phone. Sometime in the next 7 minutes, Brianna was stabbed to death.
So two dog walkers, Mr. and Mrs. Vyse, who were walking in the park, noticed something lying on the ground and a young male crouched over. A young female was nearby. As they got closer, they started running away across this field just here, and the female stopped, turned, and Mrs. Vyse had stared at her, which she found really unnerving and frightening.
So Liz, what was this scene that confronted Mr. and Mrs. Vyse?
Oh, well, it must have been nothing short of horrific. Mrs. Vyse was audibly distressed on the 999 call she made to the police, and she told the operator that the girl was in an unnatural, contorted position on these steps. Her coat and her back was covered in blood, and her face, she said she couldn't see her face and she couldn't tell whether she was breathing. In fact, she told the operator that she feared that the girl was dead and there was nothing anyone would be able to do for her.
By 3:25 p.m, PC Andrew Chadwick was on the scene and tried giving Brianna CPR before paramedics arrived. For nearly 40 minutes they tried to revive her, but at 4:02 p.m, Brianna was pronounced dead. Following the attack in Linear Park, what did Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe do?
So we know that they ran away together. They dropped Brianna's phone down a drain not far from Scarlett Jenkinson's house, and then they split up. So Scarlett went home, Eddie Ratcliffe got the bus back to his home in nearby Lee. Quite quickly they were both online. Scarlett Jenkinson was sending messages to Eddie Ratcliffe, sharing press reports and feigning ignorance, really, trying to lay a false trail.
My brother just told me not to go to Linear Park because a woman got stabbed.
Jesus, really? Holy crap.
We know that she also sent a message to Brianna's phone saying, you know, why did you ditch us at the park?
Girl, is everything okay? And some teenage girl got killed in Linear Park. It's on the news everywhere. And why did you ditch us for some random man from Manchester? Like, what the f***? That is so up.
She started with this story that Brianna had gone off to meet a 17-year-old boy from Manchester, but she obviously knew full well that Brianna was dead and she would never read that message.
Later that evening, Scarlett Jenkinson messaged Eddie Ratcliffe again.
Do you have anxiety about getting caught?
Probably.
You're not going to get caught, don't worry. Police are here.
Police began painstakingly uncovering evidence, attempting to piece together Brianna's last known movements. 2 fizzy drink bottles near Brianna's body were taken away for testing. Within a day, a post-mortem had been held, revealing the full horror of the attack. 28 separate stab wounds were identified, 12 of which indicated that she'd been attacked from behind. The deepest stab wound was over 5 inches deep.
This level of violence you would expect to come from somebody who feels a real anger either against that person or what that person represents. So it's quite incongruous with Eddie Ratcliffe's casual approach to this murder. It's very, very strange, but it shows that there's got to be real anger and resentment there, doesn't it? And it shows that they were truly committed to this murder. This is not something that was done tentatively. This was not something that was done experimentally. This is, well, I'm doing it and I'm all in and I absolutely mean it.
Following house-to-house inquiries and evidence gathering, the police had now seen the CCTV of Brianna with the unknown girl and boy. But their first big break came 24 hours after the attack.
Scarlett had told her mother this story that she'd been in the park with Brianna and Brianna had gone off to meet this 17-year-old boy from Manchester, this mystery boy that she didn't know who he was. And Scarlett's mother decided, like, you know, any parent would do, that it could be significant maybe. So she called 101, called Cheshire Police, and actually while she was on the phone to the officer, she handed the phone to her daughter, who recounted this story to the officer on the other end of the phone.
We went to Linnea. We sat on the bench for a bit. She looked at her phone and said she needed to go and meet some boy. He was 17 and from Manchester. I didn't know his name or anything. She said he was picking her up and stormed off. She said, "Stop interrogating me," and just walked away. She's not mentioned him before. I think it's someone from online. We stayed in Linnea for a little bit and then went to Culture. I went home and he went back.
Within an hour of that call, Jenkinson messaged Ratcliffe, instructing him to corroborate her version of events.
I haven't gone station, but my mum phoned police. Not sure what's going to happen. Make sure story adds up. Say to police everything. We met Brianna at 1:30, walked to Linnea, and sat and chilled on the bench. Then Brianna looked at her phone and said she was going to meet some lad and walked off. Went Sainsbury's, sat and chilled at the Stone area. Then you got bus home and I went home.
Jenkinson then posted a gushing tribute to Brianna.
Brianna was one of the best people I have ever met and such an amazing friend. It's so sickening what got done to her.
Within 2.5 hours of the phone call, police swooped on the homes of Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe and arrested the pair.
You Eddie?
Yeah.
Eddie, you're locked up suspicion of murder, alright? You don't have to say anything, but you may harm you eventually when questioned. So you later line in court, and if you do say evidence, do you understand?
Yeah. Well, just unlock these. I can't explain it.
No, listen.
Right, listen.
Do it all on interview, alright? Yeah. You're going to take it to the wrong corner, you'll be interviewed about it, they'll ask you questions, alright?
Obviously you are under caution, so anything you say is getting recorded. Okay.
What if me being suspect is because, like, I was the last person that's seen her, or, like, how come I'm a suspect?
Pardon?
Like, how come I'm a suspect?
How come you're a suspect?
Because I'm the last person that's seen her, is it?
I don't know. All information I've received is you are a suspect, okay?
Scarlett Jenkinson continued with these lies that Brianna had gone off with a 17-year-old boy from Manchester. Eddie Ratcliffe said something completely different. He told police that actually they'd met Brianna off the bus, gone to the park, and he had actually stepped away from the two girls for a short time to go to the toilet behind a tree, and when he came back, he saw Scarlett Jenkinson stabbing and trying to kill Brianna.
I went over to Brianna to see if she was alive. I put my hands on her to see if she was breathing, but I got blood on my hands. I panicked and ran.
Did you see where the blood was coming from?
Everywhere.
How did Scarlett appear when you were walking back?
Calm.
How were you?
Panicked and stressed. Shocked, obviously.
Meanwhile, at their homes, investigators were uncovering damning evidence. In Ratcliffe's wardrobe, they found a hunting knife, which was later found to have traces of Brianna's blood on it. In Jenkinson's bedroom, they found notes written by her, including the note outlining how she planned to murder Brianna. After initially assisting detectives during his interview, Ratcliffe realised that the police had more evidence than he first thought. He was advised to answer further questions with no comment. And Jenkinson, faced with mounting evidence of her involvement, did the same. Across the UK, vigils were held in memory of Brianna. In the lead-up to the trial, the defendants were assessed. Scarlett Jenkinson was thought to be suffering from attention deficit disorder, as well as anxiety and mild autism. Ratcliffe was also diagnosed with autism and was displaying high levels of social anxiety. His verbal communication was now also limited. On the 27th of November, the trial began at Manchester Crown Court. Can you describe the special measures that were put in place for the court hearings for Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe?
So the most significant one was in reference to Eddie Ratcliffe's selective mutism. So the court was told that he'd effectively stopped speaking to anyone apart from his mum after the murder. And so he was allowed, really unusually, I've never seen it before in my career, to plead not guilty by writing it down and holding it up on a piece of paper. And then when it came to him giving his evidence, the barristers read their questions to him, and he was sat in another room in an annex with an intermediary, and he was allowed to type his answers, and then she spoke them to the court. And that was all relayed on a video link to the jury.
There were some suggestions or concerns that they might have been treated with kid gloves, that the law went sort of easy on them during the trial. And what do you think of that?
I can understand that as a point of view. I think for the trial judge, the overriding priority has to be getting the case to a successful conclusion. And by successful, I mean a verdict, whether it be guilty or not guilty. And the risk that you have is that if a person with vulnerabilities, whether it be adult or child, finds the process of the trial too stressful, their condition may worsen and they reach a point where they can't continue with the trial.
Over a period of 5 days, while they gave their testimony, the two defendants blamed one another for the killing of Brianna. But the evidence that they'd left behind was overwhelming. Given the digital record and the physical clues that they left behind, there was never a chance that they would get away with this crime. Was that, do you think, arrogance or ignorance?
I think that there was probably a level of arrogance, but I think it's more to do with the fact that these are children and they've not thought things through as well as they could have done. they were too involved in their own fantasy, and they'd lost sense of actually the real world and real world consequences.
To have a case literally in black and white from start to finish, that is quite unusual. It perhaps shows to some degree the naivety of the defendants, that they didn't realise that all of this was going to be recovered. And that's obviously what made it a very strong case, and why the jury weren't out for very long.
On December the 20th, the jury retired and deliberated for a mere 4 hours and 40 minutes before finding them both guilty of murder.
Prior to the trial, I had moments where I felt sorry for the defendants because they had ruined their own lives as well as ours. But now, knowing the true nature and seeing neither display an ounce of remorse for what they have done to Brianna, I have lost all sympathy that I may have previously had for them.
But there remains one unanswered question. Why did two young people commit such a terrible and violent crime?
This is a very, very unique and very shocking case. I do think that there are some problems with Scarlett Jenkinson's personality. I think there's some antisocial elements to her personality, but also the fact that she's been looking at horror films since the age of 13 and not finding them frightening, but actually finding them exciting. But still, I've got to ask myself, if she had not found Eddie Ratcliffe, would this have happened? I don't think it would. I think it is these two personalities coming together and the way that they interact and the way that they encourage each other. I think what we have here is two people who are motivated by sadism, pure and simple. They want to have what they feel is the ultimate experience of killing somebody, and they feel that they're going to enjoy watching their pain, their suffering, their humiliation, and ultimately their death.
On February the 2nd, the day of sentencing, there was to be one more extraordinary twist when, for the first time, it was revealed that Scarlett Jenkinson had admitted to having stabbed Brianna. Following her conviction, she had been seen by a forensic psychiatrist. She told him that after Ratcliffe had initiated the attack, he had panicked, so she had taken over. Asked how many times she had stabbed Brianna, she replied, "A lot." She also claimed that it had been her intention to take part of Brianna's body, part of her flesh, as a token.
I don't know how either of them are going to come out in the future, because they've made a terrible mess, haven't they, of their own lives in taking Brianna's life.